Welcome to Karibu Anawim's 15 Minutes at Dr. Zali's Desk special. Join us as we dive into the topics related to living with a facial disfigurement. Whether you're here for yourself, your loved ones, or for educational and professional insights, this is for you. We start our conversation with clear, understandable terminology. While we use disfigurement, it's for medical and legal clarity. We acknowledge you may relate to terms like visible difference or your own diagnoses. All our presenters have lived experience or work with people living with facial disfigurement. Curious to know more? So are we. Pull up a seat, grab a cuppa, and let's chat around the table with Karibu Anawim's 15 Minutes at Dr. Zali's Desk special.
Hi, and welcome to 15 Minutes at Dr. Zali's Desk. This is a special guest presentation, and I'm going to bring in our guest today, Dr. Lise. Now, Dr. Lise, how are you today?
I'm so well. It's nice to be
Did I get your name right?
Well, very close. It's Lise, but
Lise. That's excellent.
Yes, I answer to everything.
No, I don't. I like Zali. I give them the I, Lise, if they say Zali. I'm not a Bali Zali, I'm a Haley Zali.
Okay, and I've said your name wrong then, so there you go. We're even, aren't we? Yeah.
Yes, Lise. So, where in the world are you from?
Yes, I'm talking to you from Pennsylvania in the United States. Pennsylvania is between sort of New York and Washington, D.C., for those out there who aren't familiar with our lovely little state. And I think I'm 15 hours behind you or something like that. So to me, it's Monday night, and to you, it's Tuesday morning. Or is it Tuesday afternoon? What is it there?
Tuesday morning. Tuesday morning, 10:15 in the morning.
All right, then.
Just wondering, would you like to share something fun that you enjoy doing or something that you'd like to share first off the top of your head?
Oh, wow. Oh, when I have spare time, which I don't have a lot of because I'm doing a lot of things these days. But my very favorite thing to do when I have spare time is to get together with my two best friends from high school, Joe and Susan. And I'm in my early 60s. So when I say my two best friends from high school, we're talking people I've known a long time. And we get together and we sing. Joe writes music and we sing these close harmonies, think like Crosby, Stills and Nash kind of stuff. And we make music together all weekend and we laugh and we laugh and we laugh. It is the best thing.
That's beautiful because you come from a musical background too, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, because we have so much in common. It's not funny. Dr. Lise has done her PhD, done my PhD, but she might have done it a bit earlier on than me. And she's written a book called Flashback Girl. There you go. And I've read it. So I was saying, would you like to tell us a bit about how you felt with writing the book?
Yeah.
Because it's about your life.
Yeah. So I'm trained as a psychologist, and as I think most psychologists, I was trained to be quiet about myself and be there in the room to listen to others, which I still do in my practice, very much still do. But I had quite a big story to tell in terms of what I went through in my own life. I'm a childhood burn survivor. My family went on a brief holiday, and on our first night on vacation, it was time for dinner. My mother was looking around the house looking for lighter fluid. She thought she found some, and she went to start this fire with me standing right next to her, and nothing happened. And she went to relight it again, and in that moment, there was this giant eruption of flame that enveloped both of us. And my mother in that moment realized that there was one way out, which was to dash through the fire and into the lake and save herself. And that is what she did. But in her panic, she left me in the fire. So I, was very severely burned in 1967. 65% of me, I lost my lip, my chin, my neck, my arms were fused to my sides. I was really extremely lucky to live at that time. And, I spent my whole childhood in medical reconstruction, and I and I still actually have that. And I spent a lot of my early life in sort of psychological healing. And then I went about my life. I'm a psychologist. I started work. I have practice. I have a family. And at some point, and that point actually happened to be after my mother passed away, at some point I realized I am ready to tell this story. And I wrote my book, Flashback Girl. And I'm so glad that I had the chance to do it, because it's not just about the fire, and it's not just about being scarred. It's also about growing up in a highly, very creative and charming, but incredibly dysfunctional family, which it turns out a lot of people can relate to. So this book has, it's made its impact, and I'm very proud of it. And it's launched me into a whole other life also.
Yes. Did you know that it was going to launch you in? Did you have any idea on that?
I did not know. And it's been very exciting because, as I said, I'm in my early 60s, and I don't think I thought I would have some sort of second act here. But that is exactly what has happened. As part of writing the book, then if you want anyone to read your book, you need to promote it. And part of promoting a book is speaking. And it turns out that I love speaking, and that I have a gift for it. So I've wound up presenting all over the country. And actually, I did a presentation for a burn survivor group in New Zealand. So there you go. I've spoken down there before as well. I did a TEDx talk recently. So I have had this whole kind of new renaissance, really, as a speaker. And then, of course, as a writer, because I've written a lot more since the book came out as well. So it's been so exciting, really.
Yeah. And you advocate for people with burns, living with burns, and maybe some people living with facial disfigurement as well?
Yes, thank you for mentioning that part too, Zélie. As part of this, I've gotten connected again with the burn survivors groups that really I had been completely disconnected from for decades. No connection. And then that grew into being connected.
Was that because your life was so full, or and you didn't need to be in connection, or how did that come about?
Yeah, that's a very astute question on your part. When I was healed, there were no physically healed. There were no ongoing support groups. We were talking the 70s. There wasn't the internet, God knows, but there weren't even any ongoing support groups. There was nothing. So I went out of Shriners Burns Hospital, at the time called Shriners Burns Institute for Crippled Children. When I was not in there, I was just at home, just trying to make my way. I had no burn friends. There was no burn community that I was connected with. Nothing. So the book got me in touch, really, with all these people, because I started to speak to different burn groups, and then I made all these new friends. And then I was introduced to Face Equality International, which then connected me with sort of the larger group of people all around the world with visible difference, which is how you and I connected too. I have become actually quite, I guess, an advocate for people with visible difference and trying to reduce the prejudice against people who look different. I'm working in particular with a group of women who are trying to influence Hollywood and educate Hollywood to stop making all their villains disfigured, because that's a very common thing. I'm doing a lot sort of all over the place, and
it's good. Now, writing, because I've written my story or vignettes of my story in the Eyes Have It, AYES, the gavel. I thought it was really, really good and very novel, except I needed to write in hindsight, needed to write an autoethnographic piece or something like that. So therefore, the researchers actually knew what it was about, instead of just having this nice snappy thing. But you didn't know. I didn't know at that point. So writing for me, that piece, the academic piece, it's written in academic prose because it had to be, but it's as nicely written as I can get within that genre kind of thing of my life. I did
Yeah.
primary school, I did secondary school, I did tertiary, and I did whilst I was on holidays. So, but it wasn't actually cathartic for me, as some people say, oh no, writing your memoirs. It wasn't for me. It wasn't actually cathartic, because I'd written another article earlier on about whether or not I was to disclose during my counselling sessions or not to disclose, because as you were saying, you were taught not to whoop, zip your lip. You're not supposed to be talking about yourself. But there are two trains of thoughts of, is what you're going to speak about your own self, is that detrimental or is that good for your patient or your client kind of thing? And I was just saying, well, sometimes with gaining retention for non-facially disfigured people, then an open discussion about my face and my eye is necessary, because you can't just say hi and how are you and not have a conversation about at least something that I'm healed from as much as possible. I think it's just an ongoing process. Was it cathartic for you writing your memoirs out? Did that bring another extra layer of healing? Or
I think it did. I will say, I mean, I wept through writing a fair amount of the book, and I don't want to discourage people from reading it, because there's also there's humor in this book, and there's a lot of hope and
yeah.
a lot of love, and good things happen. But also there was a lot of struggle, and it was challenging to write, because like you also, I like to write in a way that people really feel things. I don't like
You did.
to
I did.
yeah, thank you. The part that was cathartic for me, or healing, is that putting it all in one place like that helped me to be able to say, okay, and that's there. That it sort of took it out of me a bit, externalized it a bit in a way that I found helpful. And the other thing that I have found extremely helpful, and you might relate to this, is that I have never felt that anyone could really understand me. Burn treatment, and I say, I know I'm about to say something that we don't connect on, but just the same, I think it's probably similar. What I went through medically was so horrific, both physically and emotionally and socially, was so horrific. And then everything else that happened later on with my family was so bizarre, that I've often felt like there's no one in the world that can understand me. But now I feel like lots of people understand me if they've taken the time to read it. I don't feel so incredibly unusual anymore. And I don't mean unusual in a good way. I mean unusual in a difficult way. I no longer feel like someone that no one can know.
And that's a beautiful holistic end. And I'm thinking that, like, as you saying, that was putting it all together, it's kind of like, well, that's your front cover, that's your back cover. I've done this. I can take it out of the thing and I can read about it now, and perhaps it's another layer of healing. And as you would know, with scarring and that, of healing of skin, you need to have a fairly tough lot to be able to press on it and remember it, like press on this and remember it. But it remember it as in it's not hurting as much anymore, because you've been able to acknowledge and validate your experiences, your lived experiences.
Right. Yes. Well said.
So thank you very much. Would you like to come? I'm just seeing the time, and we only do 15 minutes chunks.
Yes.
So would you like to come back and chat a little bit more, or would you like to do that with us?
Love to, yes. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, everyone, for coming. That was part 1 of Lise Deguire's story, or Dr. Lise. We'll be back later on, and thank you very much for coming and listening.
By golly gosh, it's the end of Karibu Anawim's 15 Minutes at Dr. Zali's Desk special. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. Please remember that all information given during this episode is for general application only. If you have any specific medical issues, as always, consult with your medical practitioner. Like, subscribe and share on whatever platform you find us on. For more information, please connect with Karibu Anawim on our website at karibuanawim.com or email us at inquiries@karibuanawim.com.